Hi, you prep scholars. Happy Tuesday. Today we are starting our last unit together, which is Unit 12, the Westward Expansion After the Civil War. Some reminders to start our week is to complete any active assessments on Edulastic, especially the Civil War unit tests. If you have not already done that, please complete that. iReady math and reading instructional minutes, and also don't forget to complete your math and ELA assignments and videos too. The agenda today is I'm going to state the objective, read the big question. I'm going to read chapter 1, you will read chapter 2. I will discuss independent work for the day, and then we will say our goodbyes. So for chapter 1, the objective is I can explain how Native Americans such as the Shoshone and the Utes adapted to the environment in the Great Basin, and I can summarize how the Plateau Native Americans lived in each season. Our big question for the day for chapter 1 is how did mining affect the development of the American West? Chapter 1, the mining frontier, gold fever. In 1858, the North and South were moving closer to war, but tens of thousands of people were focused elsewhere. These were the people who had gone to California after gold was discovered there. They talked of nothing but gold. They dreamed of becoming fabulously rich. Most of the eager gold seekers found nothing but disappointment in California. Then in the summer of 1858 came news that gold had been found near Pikes Peak in present-day Colorado. In less than a year, about 100,000 people, most of them in California, rushed into the Rocky Mountains, many of them crying out, "Pikes Peak or bust." Pikes Peak and bust would have been more accurate. The region actually had little gold or silver, and those small quantities had been quickly mined out before most of the newcomers arrived. So here's a picture on the left of how most of the miners who rushed to find gold in the Rockies came from California. And they had already tried and failed to get rich in the earlier gold rush of 1849. Among the disappointed miners at Pikes Peak were two Irish immigrants, Pete O'Reilly and Pat McLaughlin. The next year, 1859, these two fortune hunters moved onto the Sierra Nevada mountains in present-day Nevada. There they staked a claim to land in a place called the 6 Mile Canyon. A man named Henry Comstock talked the two immigrants into making him their partner. One day, Pete O'Reilly and Pat McLaughlin dug up a chunk of heavy blue rock. They had never seen anything like it before. So they showed the rock to a couple of rich Californians. The Californians who knew something about mining quickly realized that this rock was silver ore. That's not what they told O'Reilly and McLaughlin and Comstock, though. Instead, they offered to buy the land and the rock had come from for a few $1,000s. Comstock told his partners to let him deal with the Californians. With his experience, he assured them he'd get a lot more money out of those rich Californians, and he did. The final price was $11,000, split 3 ways. That came to $3,700 each. Comstock bragged to everyone about the terrific deal he had made. As it turned out, the joke was on him. During the next 20 years, that piece of land and area around it produced $500 million worth of silver and gold for its owners. The rich silver deposit was named the Comstock Lode, after the partner who had made the deal. News of the find traveled quickly, and thousands of miners rushed into the region. Hardly a dozen of them became rich. The others soon found that most of the silver ore in the 6 Mile Canyon was too deep into the ground to dig out with simple pickaxes and shovels. It took large mining companies with expensive machinery to do that. Before long, most of the miners who had gone to 6 Mile Canyon to seek their fortune were working for these mining companies. Mining towns. And so it went all through the West, in present-day Nevada, Colorado, Idaho, Arizona, Montana, and Wyoming. The last great gold rush of the mining frontier was in the Black Hills of present-day South Dakota in 1854. 1874. Some of these finds, like the ones at Pikes Peak, yielded little gold or silver. Others, like the Comstock Gold, produced incredible riches. However, a strike was reported, or even rumored. Hundreds of miners rushed to stake claims to the land. Mining camps sprang up on every nearby hillside. These camps brought together people from many places, for all walks of life. The one thing these different people shared was a dream of instant wealth. Some did not care how they got that wealth. One person wrote that the mining camps, or pickpocket, robbers, thieves, and swindlers, were mixed with men who had come with honest intentions. Daring thefts and cold-blooded murders were common in these unruly camps. There were no laws or police in the mining camps to deal with the outlaws and thieves, so honest miners made and enforced their own laws. This system of justice came to be known as vigilante justice, or frontier justice. It was often very harsh. Those declared guilty of crimes were likely to be hanged, sometimes without trial. Most mining camps remained a collection of tents on the hillside, but a big strike could turn a mining camp into a booming town in no time at all. Within days, merchants would have arrived and put up a string of wooden stores along the main street to sell different tools, clothing, and food to the miners. A good many of them became far richer than even their customers. Every mining town had gambling houses, saloons. In time, a number of them also had banks, hotels, newspapers, offices, and even theaters. Although the mining frontier was mostly a male world, there were women who ran small hotels, boarding houses, and laundries. The richest of these western mining towns was Virginia City, Nevada. Samuel Clemens, who would later become famous using the name Mark Twain, was at the time a young newspaper reporter living in Virginia City. He described in that boom town, the sidewalks swarmed with people. The streets themselves were as crowded with wagons, freight teams, and other vehicles. Money was left as dust. There were fire companies, brass bands, banks, hotels, theaters, wide open gambling places, street fights, murders, riots, a whiskey mill every 15 steps. Settling the mining frontier. Some mining towns grew into lasting cities. Las Jan's Gulch, for example, became the city of Helena, Montana. But most of these towns blazed brightly for a short time, and then like comets in the sky, they were gone. Once the gold or silver mined out, the miners moved on. Empty buildings gathered dust, and the towns became the ghost towns of the West. Still, the mining frontier brought people to the West. While most miners did move on, some stayed. So did some of the men and the women who ran the stores, farmed the land, raised cattle, and started schools and churches. They raised families and built up the country. Remember those thousands who headed for Pikes Peak only to find no gold there? Many found work in the nearby town. In that way, mining helped settle the present-day states of Colorado, Nevada, Montana, Idaho, Washington, and South Dakota. The whole mining frontier lasted for only about 25 years, from the Great Gold Rush in California in 1848 until the strike in South Dakota in 1847. There was plenty of gold and silver in the West, but it lay deep below the Earth's surface where only the expensive machinery of the big mining companies could get it. By the 1880s, the lone prospector, the person with the pickaxe, shovel, and the pack mule, could still be seen wandering the West in search of that one lucky strike, but his day had passed, and the rowdy, get-rich-quick days of the mining frontier has passed as well. So by the 1880s, the lone prospector was a rare sight. Most mining was done by large companies. Now you're going to read about Chapter 2 and how the railroads are going to come to the West. Your big question for the Chapter 2 is, what were the benefits and drawbacks of the Transcontinental Railroad? Your independent work is also connected to this concept. So what you're going to do today is, using the map of the Transcontinental Railroad, you're just going to answer the question below about what is the Transcontinental Railroad and how did it help people to move out west. Alright, some reminders and goodbyes. Complete any active EduList assessments, including the Civil War assessment that was recently posted last week. Make sure to do iReady math and reading minutes. Don't forget to complete math and ELA assignments and videos, and remember to send your work to your teachers when it says to take a picture. Make sure you do that, and also I hope you have a great day. Take care!